NATO ships from 14 nations just wrapped up Exercise Seabreeze in the Black Sea. Defense News' very own Megan Eckstein was there and joins us now to tell us more about the exercise.
Seabreeze is an annual exercise that takes place in the Black Sea. The U.S. and Ukraine host this annual exercise, which dates back to 1997. And the basic premise of Seabreeze is that U.S., Ukraine, and other NATO allies and partners in the region get together and practice basic operations together. They practice communicating, they practice maneuvering in close quarters, just the basic blocking and tackling of working together in the Black Sea as a naval task group and coming together and being sure that they can operate with one another. Seabreeze 21 had a maritime component to it, which included American destroyer USS Ross leading a naval task group at sea in the Black Sea. It also included a NATO maritime task group participating as well. In addition to the maritime component, the Ukrainian naval base actually had a sunken yacht that had been blocking a good portion of the naval base and preventing its ships from pulling up to the pier. So there was a big diving component to this year. Basically, they sent divers down under the water, primarily U.S. divers, but also Ukrainian and other NATO nations. And they broke into pieces this sunken yacht and pulled it up and actually freed the harbor, which was a very interesting demonstration of that particular warfighting capability. Nearby, there were also Marines and naval infantry forces ashore that were working together to ensure that they could come together for a ground battle if called upon. And of course, there was an air component, air drills over land as well as over the Black Sea. And really the idea of all of the pieces was to prove that US, Ukrainian, and NATO forces can come together regardless of the mission, and they have the capabilities of working alongside one another with common practices to meet a common goal. Tensions have been simmering in the Black Sea ever since 2014 when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. And while those tensions have been simmering for years now, this year has been especially tense since Russia flowed a significant amount of forces to the Ukraine border and to the Black Sea earlier this year in what they called their own military exercises. While NATO and the US were monitoring that, plans for the Seabreeze 21 exercise were already ongoing, and though the exercise is pre-planned and not technically in response to Russia and their movement of military forces towards Ukraine, there's no denying that that tension with Russia had a big impact on this year's Seabreeze 21 exercise in the Black Sea and added another element to the exercise, showing that interoperability with Ukraine also meant that NATO and the US could respond to tensions in the area if called upon. Even though the Seabreeze 21 exercise is meant to focus on the mechanics of interoperability between navies, it also sends a larger message.
I think that the importance of Seabreeze is to demonstrate our collective resolve for a peaceful and stable Black Sea region. And of course, the Black Sea, just like every other international body of water, doesn't belong to one particular nation. It belongs to the world. And all of us out here demonstrate our commitment to that shared objective of making the international waterways available to everybody.
That message goes to the Russian Navy. While aboard USS Ross as a participant in the Seabreeze 21 exercise, I was able to see 4 Russian ships following the destroyer pretty much the entire duration of the exercise. Russia was very clearly monitoring what the U.S. ships and its NATO allies were doing in the Black Sea with aircraft overhead and with ships in the water, and just making their presence known while this international exercise was happening. Though there were no aggressive incidents while the U.S. destroyer was in the Black Sea, when the U.S. isn't around, Russia has been known to try to harass Ukrainian naval ships. The Ukrainian Navy has much smaller patrol boats in their fleet, and particularly looking back to 2018 in the Kerch Strait, Russia went so far as to capture 3 Ukrainian vessels as well as the 24 sailors on board. So when Ukraine is alone in the Black Sea and in the Sea of Azov, the tensions are much higher and really highlights the need to have NATO partners and allies in the region who can back up Ukraine and help them defend their territorial sovereignty. Ukraine would love to join NATO and is taking steps now to get their military and to get their government ready for NATO membership. Being a NATO member would, of course, provide them a greater sense of stability, a greater sense of security, knowing that they would have allies who would come to their defense if Russia attacked. However, with that goal still being potentially years off, Ukraine really looks to these Sea Breeze exercises as A, a message to Russia that they have friends in the region who have their back, and B, as a way of proving that their Navy can fall in with larger naval groups if they needed to defend their shorelines, if they needed to defend their borders in any type of naval battle in the future.
The Ukrainian Navy has accepted delivery of the first Bayraktar TB2 drone from Turkish defense company Baykar. The Ukrainian Ministry of Defense announced the delivery in July through its official Twitter account. After completing acceptable tests, the drone, along with mobile control terminals and spare parts, will be deployed at the Ukrainian Navy's 10th Naval Aviation Brigade in Mykolaiv. Baykar announced in 2019 that it won a $69 million contract to sell 6 TB2 combat UAVs to Ukraine. Turkish officials at the time said the deal included ammunition for the armed drones. The Ukrainian Navy's Chief of Staff Oleksiy Nespapa previously said the combat UAVs are expected to be delivered by the end of 2021. The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency has opened its first unclassified laboratory in St. Louis, continuing the agency's push for collaboration with commercial and non-traditional partners. While NGA has unclassified areas within some of its facilities, Moonshot's lab is unique that it was designed to be open from the very beginning. Industry leaders in the geospatial intelligence space have said that the classification requirement companies need to meet in order to work with the intelligence community are onerous, even when much of the work is technically at the unclassified level. In response, the agency has expressed interest in connecting more of its work in the unclassified space, and the work-from-home reality of the COVID-19 pandemic pushed it to adopt new practices that encourage more work at the unclassified level. NGA Director Vice Admiral Robert Sharp said last year that many of those new practices would become the norm. Located in downtown St. Louis, the new Moonshot Labs will encompass 12,000 square feet of shared workspace. A U.S. Army National Guard unit is set to get its first Victor model Black Hawk this month, according to a top aviation officer. The UH-60V converts a Lima model Black Hawk from an analog cockpit to a digital one, intended to better match the capabilities of a Mike model, the latest variant of the helicopter. Redstone Defense Systems won an Army contract to take the Northrop Grumman's cockpit design and integrate the technology into the V model prototypes in spring 2014. The Army partnered with Corpus Christi Army Depot, Texas, to convert L models into the new V models at a rate of 48 aircraft per year, which some have called too slow, as it would take 15 years for the service to produce all 760 aircraft. The Army has been looking at ways to speed that up. And do you know the difference between consolidation and refinance student loans? Well, you will after this week's Money Minute, and that's coming up after the break.